Shnautra aure mazda Hashem vahu vahishtemasti ushtasti Ushtahamaya tashai vahishtai Hashem. Baname Ahura Mazda. To think a good thought, to speak a good word, to do a good deed is righteousness. Happiness comes to those who live with the consciousness of righteousness. And with that sentiment, ladies and gentlemen, this is Meher Amal Saad and welcome to Bahumata, a program designed to build oneness with the consciousness of righteousness in humanity. The goal is not to grow the plant but to plant the seed for each one of us to blossom with our own love, light, grace, joy and peace. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this very special journey to enlightenment. And as you do, please join me in giving a warm Zartushti welcome to our very own Zartushti neuroscientist from United Kingdom, Dr. Karishma Khoka.
Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining a very special Navroz episode of Bahumata. Yazdi will be playing a video in a couple of minutes, and the important message that video is sharing with us is the message that while parenting is an art that is built from the heart, the video tells us that with good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, we can actually implement the message of the Gathas, the messages of Asho Zarathustra side. It links very closely into the meaning of the theme itself and the last line of the verse 44.7, which is the reference for today, which says, Ahura Mazda's Spentamainu is the giver of everything. This video also talks about Humata Hukta Huvarashta and the support of Ahura Mazda, which keeps everything pure, the fires, the waters, and also wakes each one of us every day to do good and to pray. Yazdi, over to you for the video. Thank you.
उदात कर उदावर परवरदिगार नमन हो जो तुझने हजारों हजार जग छे सौनो तू एकलो आधार तू ज्ञानी तू दानी दयानो बंदार पैगंबर ने माथे दिधा जिन्हें राह ने कीने खुला किदा तिजर थोस पैगंबर ने माथे दिधा जिन्हें राह ने कीने खुला किदा हुंता हुक्ता हुवरश्नु ज्ञान दिदो अम्ने पैगंबरे बदी बद फिली थी तो दूर राख जे भला जिते ने जे तुझने बजे बुरा वक्त मारो तो साथी थजे मदद कर जिते ने जे तुझने बजे बुरा वक्त मारो तो साथी थजे नेक इंसान रहबर तू थजे सदा जे करी पाक फरज जो सर्वे अदा हवा पानी आतश रोशन राख जे इन यारा न करवा शक्ति आप जे हवा पानी आतश रोशन राख जे इन यारा न करवा शक्ति आप जे हरी माया ने मेहर हम पर सदा रास रास्ते दोराव जे आजे जे मुठाव्यो तू वहली सवार काले भी जगार जे परवर दिगार आजे जे मुठाव्यो तू वहली सवार काले भी जगार जे परवर दिगार उठी पाक थईने हूँ बंदगी करूं हशो तुझ नामी याद है ये धरूं उदार कर उदावर रो परवर दिगार नमन हो जो तुझने हजारों हजार जग छे सौनो तू एकलो आधार तू ज्ञानी तू दानी दयानो भंडार
Thank you very much, Baba Meher, for sharing this beautiful video with all of us. For those who missed it, this concept of Dadar Auramazda, the giver of all, Vispanam Datarem, is the last line of the verse that we are referencing today, Yasna 44, verse 7. Today's Bahumata is a very special episode where each speaker will focus on the theme of parenting. And in parenting, each one has their own opinions. Hence, this session will focus also on the concept that Zarathustra Sahib has given us, each one for oneself, think, and then do the best in the circumstance, which is Yasna 30.2. So feel free to contribute in the dialogue session, where after each of the speakers speak, we will have a question and answer session. Our first speaker today is Mobadyar Bastani, and we will request her to start off our session today with a prayer, after which I'll give her an introduction, and then we'll ask her for her talk. Over to you, Darsha and Mobadyar Banu Anusher Bastani.
Shnautra Hurai Mazda Asham Bo Vaishtamasti Ushta Asti Ushta Ahmai Yadashoi Vaishta Yashem Ahmai Reishach Varanascha Ahmai Tanbo Darbatatem Ahmai Tanbo Vazdvarem Ahmai Tanbo Veletrem Ahmai Ishtim Porosh Chatram احمایی آسنام چیت فرزنتیم احمایی در قام در غوجیتیم احمایی و اشتمهم اشانم رو چنکم بیس با خاطرم اشم و اشتمستی اشتا استی اشتا احمایی یدشایی و اشتا یشم
Sepas Shoma Mobadyar Banu Anusher Bastani, thank you very much. Mobadyar Anusher Bastani is an extremely erudite speaker who has trained for many, many years, as we will see. Her father is Dr. Khodaram Bastani and her mother Merengi Shahzadi. And she has a brother, Ashkan Bastani, who's currently one of the Mobids in California. Mobidyar is the second grandchild of the late Dastur Rustam Shahzadi. Her family life, especially alongside her grandparents, caused her to gradually come under the calm and indirect teachings of Mobed Shahzadi, a factor that shaped her course of life. Her husband is Ramin Danish and children Darsha and Avisa. And we're very grateful to Darsha today for the translation. Since we don't understand Farsi, we are relying on Darsha. And also Mobidyar Bastani has an excellent understanding of English. At a certain period of time, as Mobidyar Bastani has explained, she accepted that for the preservation of her ancestral community, she needs to follow the path of her forebearers. And in order to provide greater and better service to the Zoroastrian co-religionists, she became an active inspector, quote unquote, in the Association of Mobids, in which her husband was also very supportive. Given her abilities and deep interest with the assistance of experienced Mobids, as in the late Mobedan Mobed, Mobed Syed Firuzgari, and Mobed Dr. Ardeshar Kardashian, she simultaneously underwent religious education and training for about 6 years. As Mobidyar Anusher Bastani explains further, when she was accepted by the community of Mobed-born families as one of the official members of the Association of Mobids of Iran, shortly thereafter, after the passing all the required examinations in December 2022 during the Gambar of Chahre Maidiorem, she began serving her co-religionists in the position of Mobidyar, and she's currently also one of the Mobidyars in California. Now, Mobidyar Anusher Bastani feels it necessary to point out a certain detail, historic detail. After the Arab invasion and the defeat of the Sasanians in the land of Iran, a number of traditions were altered and distorted. She explains to us that this includes the removal of the Mobedhood tradition for female Mobed-born individuals. Therefore, when Anusher Bastani assumed this important responsibility, despite having been properly trained in all rituals, prayers, and traditions, just like male Mobed-born individuals, and although she currently performs all types of ceremonies, they have not been able to conduct the initiation ceremony called the Nauzuti ceremony for her. Her academic qualifications are many, including a bachelor's in psychology of exceptional children, consultant and designer of healthy living methods in Iranian traditional medicine, and she's also active in mantra healing. Her upbringing in the Mazda Yasni religion, the special edition for Zoroastrian children and adolescents, is also one of her major contributions, as she is a researcher of the archetype of Mazda Yasni religion and author of the 3-volume book. In addition, Mobidyar Bano is a compiler and author of the book Selections from the Khorde Avesta, which is the unfinished research of Dastur Rustam Shahzadi, and she has completed that. But due to migration from Iran, she did not have the opportunity to publish the final version of this book in Iran. Finally, for about a year now, Mobidyar Bastani has been living with her daughters, Darsha and Avish Danesh, in the city of San Diego. And as always, she responsibly continues performing various religious and ritual ceremonies required by her co-religionists. And recently, based on the requests and the needs of the Zoroastrian women in San Diego, she has also added sessions focused on correct recitation of the Avesta and the Matra to her many activities. We thank you for your complete dedication and wish you the very best in your commitment, Mobidyar Anusher Bastani. Over to you, and thank you, Darsha, for the translations.
Thank you.
And forgive us for not understanding Farsi or Dari.
We're learning English too, so we're fine. Yeah. Okay.
اوکی. شناوت را هورای مزدا. با درود آخرین مهریزت در آخرین ماه سال 3763 دینی زرتشتی بر همه همکیشان این گروه خجسته باشه. متاسفانه جا داره بگم در این روز همکیشان ما از سرزمین اهوراییمون ایران به دلیل قطع اینترنت که هممون الان این شرایط رو میدونیم نمیتونن در این لحظه در کنار ما باشن. بیایید همگی براشون آرزوی سلامتی و شادی داشته باشیم و فقط مانترای اهونم ویریم تنوم پایتی رو براشون بفرستیم. اهونم ویریم تنوم پایتی، اهونم ویریم تنوم پایتی، اهونم ویریم تنوم پایتی. هشم و ویشته مستی وشته هستی وشته احمد یادشای ویشته یشم یعنی
Greeting and may the last Mehrizad in the final month of the Zoroastrian religious years, 3763, be auspicious for the fellow religionists in this group. Unfortunately, because of the internet shutdown and what's happening in Iran, our loved ones there can't join us today. Let's all wish them safety, health, and joy from far. اهونم وریم تنوم پایتی، اهونم وریم تنوم پایتی، اهونم وریم تنوم پایتی.
موضوع وبینار امروز روش درست فرزند پروری و داشتن فرزندانی تندرست است. اول با واژه کلمه تندرست شروع میکنم که یک واژه فارسیه به معنی درستی تن و روان. یعنی برای رسیدن به رشد و کمال تن و روانمون باید همه بخشای وجودیمون رو بر پایه عشا و راستی هدایت بکنیم. عشا یا هنجار هستی خلاصش میشه همت و هوخت و ورشت.
The topic of today's webinar is what is the correct method of parenting and raising healthy children. The word tandurasti is a Persian term meaning integrity of body and soul. This means that to achieve the growth and perfections of body and soul, we must direct all parts of our existence based on Asha and truth. Asha, or the universal law of extension, can be summarized as Homat, Hucht, Havarisht.
اولش قبل از هر چیز لازمه در مورد یه نکته اشاره بکنم. در روانشناسی برای تقسیم بندی کارکرد مغز یعنی بخش غیر مادیش ما اصطلاح کودک درون رو داریم. یعنی کودکی که درون خودمون سالها نگرش داشتیم، سالها هست و همچنان با ما تا آخر زندگیمون هست، زندگی جسمیمون. و کمتر به این کودک توجه کردیم. هیچ کدوم حرفش رو نمیشنویم. در صورتی که این کودک نیاز به خوراک جسمی نداره و فقط میخواد توجه و مهربونی ما رو به خودش جلب بکنه و حتی گاهی مواقع فقط لازمه ما ببینیمش یا بشنویمش و فقط با یه جمله خیلی قشنگ، خیلی امیدوارانه، مرسی بدن، مرسی روح که تا این همه سال برای من داری کمکم میکنی، در کنارم هستی و به من خدمت میکنی. این باعث میشه که هم تندرست بمونیم هم بتونیم برای خانوادهمون بهترین ها رو رقم بزنیم.
At this point, based on Frasha, I found it necessary to mention a point. In psychology, for the classification of the brain functioning, meaning the non-material part, we have a term called the inner child. Therefore, anyone who is listening to my words at this moment needs to first pay attention to the child that has been hidden within the spiritually for years and perhaps has received little attention, and then attend to their family. Of course, our inner child does not need physical food. Rather, it only needs attention and kindness, as sometimes it just wants to be seen or heard. Sometimes even just a beautiful, hopeful, and kind sentence that we say to ourselves cause us to significantly help our own wellness and progress.
بر اساس آموزه‌های دینی زرتشت برای تندرستی جسم و روان قبل از هر چیزی ما به پرستاری و نگهداری از 4 عنصر هستیمون نیاز داریم. هم از جنبه مادی و هم از جنبه معنوی. یعنی باد، آتش، خاک و آب. البته لازمه بدونیم زمانی که درباره انسان و تغییراتش صحبت میکنیم هیچ وقت نمیتونیم با قاطعیت و 100% بگیم که این جریان باید این مسئله اتفاق بیفته به خاطر اینکه انسان‌ها برای زنده موندن و بقا با توجه به زمان و فصول و شرایط گوناگون سنی و منطقه‌ای که در اون زندگی میکنن رفتارها و احساسات متفاوتی رو در هر لحظه میتونن از خودشون نشون بدن. حتی در آموزه‌های اوستایی اردیبهشت 8 هم برای تندرستی انسان یک درمان کلی ارائه نمیده. در اردیبهشت 8 پزشکان به 4 گروه تقسیم میشن که اولین گروهش اشوبیشزو بود. یعنی پزشکانی که به مردم آموزش میدادن چگونه با رعایت اشویی و پاکیزگی تن و محیط زیست از ایجاد و گسترش بیماری جلوگیری بکنن.
Based on the religious teaching of Ashu Zarathustra for the wellness of body and soul, before anything else, we must pay attention to nurturing and keeping clean the 4 elements of existence from both material and spiritual aspects, meaning wind, fire, water, and soil. Of course, it is necessary to know that when we talk about humans and change in humans, we can never provide a specific solution within 100% certainty, because humans, for their survival and existence, according to different times, seasons, age conditions, and the regions where they live, show different behaviors and emotions. Even in Avesta teaching, such as Ardibehesht Yasht, a single general treatment is not afforded for human wellness.
نیاکان ما برای درک و فهم بهتر ما به مرور زمان 6 دسته این آموزه ها رو به 6 بخش دسته بندی کردن که برای داشتن بچه های نیکو، فرزندانی نیک و بایسته و شایسته اینا رو در ایران آموزش میدادن و به زبان عربی البته که من الان به فارسی برگردوندم و خیلی خلاصه و مختصر و کوتاه تیتروار میگم. وایو یا هوا، تاثیر آب و هوا و منطقه‌ای که در اون زندگی میکنید، حرکت و سکون جسمانی یا همان رعایت نکته‌هایی برای استراحت و ورزش، وضعیت درست خواب و بیداری، درست کردن عادت‌های خوراکی خانواده، وضعیت درست و مناسب دفع و جذب مواد در بدن و توجه به حالت‌های روان و احساساتمون. این حرفش شده خیلی پزشکان. آره. خب ببینم تو از اینجا بخونیم.
In the Ardibehesht Yasht, physicians are divided into 4 groups, and the first group of physicians was named Ashubaishazu, meaning physicians who taught people how to prevent the certain or spread of various disease by observing Ashu and the cleanliness of the body and environment. Over time, for our better understanding, our ancestors classified the points of physicians' wellness into 6 categories. In order to have good children, it is necessary for everyone to pay attention to those factors. But since the explanation of those topics is lengthy and they used to be taught in Arabic, I have translated them into Persian and will mention them in just a few words. First one. Vayu or air, the impact of the climate and weather of the regions where we live. Second, physical motivation and rest, observing points regarding rest and exercise. Third, correct state of sleep and wakefulness. Fourth, correcting the family's eating habit like food and drink. Fifth, correct the appropriate state of retention and evacuation of substances in the body. 6. Attention to mental state and emotions.
از آنجایی که نیت این وبینار بهینه‌سازی جامعه مزدی است و از طریق آشنایی و انتقال مطالب به همکیشانه، منم چون خب یه مشاورم بهتر دیدم که در اینجا نکته‌هایی از روانشناسان رو هم خیلی مختصر بازگو بکنم. نخستین و مهمترین عادت‌ها و باورهای فکری ما در زمان کودکی در خانواده اتفاق میفته و در بخش نیمه هوشیار مغزمون ذخیره میشه و سپس فرزندان ما در مسیر رشد همون حرفها و کارها و رفتارهایی رو انجام میدن که در خانواده دیدن یا شنیدن. حتی بچه‌هایی که از والدینشون خوششون نمیاد یا والدین خوبی ندارن، باز هم در طول زندگیشون به طور ناخودآگاه و ناهوشیار کارهایی رو انجام میدن که از بزرگترشون دیدن.
Since the intention of this webinar is to optimize the Mazda Yasna community through learn and to transfer of information to fellow coreligionists, as a consultant, found it appropriate to recount some of the perspective of modern physiology for you. The first and most important habit and intellectual belief are formed during childhood and within the family environment, and all those learning are stored in the subconscious mind of the brain. Then, in their path of growth, our children prefer the same words and actions that they have seen or heard in the throughout speech and behaviors of their parents or those they have lived with. Even people who, in their own opinion, don't like their parents' actions, it has been observed many times throughout their lives that they unconsciously perform the same action, words, and behaviors that their caregivers have performed.
خب حالا ما این نظریه رو میایم براش مثال‌های مختلف میزنم. نیاکان ما چگونه به روش سنت شفاهی کلام سپندینه اشوزرتشت، گاتها و آموزه های اوستا و سنت های ارزشمند مزد اسنا را حفظ کردند و به نسل های بعدی منتقل کردند. حتی در طول تاریخ هم که مجبور شدیم چندین مهاجرت گسترده داشته باشیم و از سرزمین مادریمون خارج بشیم، باز هم از طریق همین روش دیدن و شنیدن شفاهی بود که باورهای دینی و آیینیمون رو به نسل بعد منتقل کرد.
We can beautifully see this theory regarding our own religions as well, how our ancestors preserved the sacred words of Ashu Zartosh, the Gatha, the Avesta teaching, and the valuable Mazdi Yasna traditions through the method of oral tradition and transferred them to future generations. Even throughout history, when we were forced to have several widespread migration and leave our motherland, it was through this very method of oral seeing and hearing that our religions and ritual beliefs were transferred to the next generation.
اگه دقت کنیم میبینیم که با وجود تکنولوژی هم هنوز اولین آموزش‌های دینی رو ما داریم از طریق سنت شفاهی به بچه‌هامون منتقل میکنیم، مثل مانترای اشنبهو و یتاهو، یا موقع نو کردن کشتی در هر گاهی از شبانه روز با خواندن بخشی از اوستای پتت در آغاز نماز کشتی نو کردن، در اصل داریم غیر مستقیم و به شکل دیداری به کودک درون خودمون یادآوری میکنیم که عزیزم، تنها کاری که در هر موقعیت از زندگیت باید انجام بدی اینه که فقط از راستی، همت و هوخت و هورش پیروی کن تا بتونید درست و تندرست و شاد زندگی بکنید.
Even if you pay attention, you will see that despite technology, we are still transferring our first religion teaching to our children in the form of oral tradition, such as the Ashenvahu and Yatahu mantras, or by renewing the Koshti at any time of the day or night, and by reciting a part of the Patet Avesta, which is at the beginning of the Koshti, binding prayer, we are actually reminding our inner child indirectly and visually, my dear child, the only thing you must do in the situation of your life is to only follow truth or the same homat, hucht, and havarish, so that you can be healthy, victorious, and happy.
حالا روش فرزند پروری رو مثالش رو در مورد خانواده خودمون میگم، به خاطر اینکه من بچه بودم که خیلی مخالفت میکردم با خدا و اوستا و نماز و با هر چیزی که پیدا میکردم ایراد میگرفتم. به خصوص پدر بزرگم به شهزادی هیچی نمیگفت، فقط با آرامش و مهربونی به من لبخند میزد و چیزی نمیگفت. هیچ وقتم منو مجبور به کاری نمیکرد که به این میگن تکنیک درک و پذیرش شرایط.
Now I will relate this method of health education to the parenting style in my own family. I remember that since childhood I used to oppose praying, God, and many other religious and ritual matters that I heard a lot from those around me, especially my grandpa, Mubad Rostam Shahzadi. But he would smile at me with calmness and kindness, said nothing, and never forced me to do anything. The technique of being understood and expectness of the situation.
گاهی کتاب‌های بچگونه رو لای آموزش‌های مفیدی که خودش داشت، کتاب‌های خودش تو کتابخونه میذاشت که وقتی من میرم توی اتاقش اونا رو بردارم و بخونم و این به شکل غیر مستقیم با مهربونی که اون هیچی به من نمیگفت، من یه سری چیزا رو یاد میگرفتم. یعنی از طریق غیر مستقیم بهش میگن تکنیک مهربانی با قاطعیت.
Sometimes my grandfather would place children's book containing useful teaching among his own books so that I would read them of my own will and change through my own choice, the technique of kindness and decisiveness.
یا هر وقت مهمون داشتن که پذیرایی میکردم، ناخودآگاه به حرفای اونا گوش میکردم، راهنمایی دینی رو آموزش میدادم، یعنی به شکل غیر مستقیم. این چیزهایی که آموخته میشد در ذهن من ذخیره میشد. بهش میگن تکنیک غیر مستقیم دیدن و شنیدن و سپس درونی شدن مطلب.
Or whenever they had guests, I would help my grandmother in hosting them. And I would unconsciously listen to their conversation and our religious and ritual guidance, and those teachings were being stored in my mind. The technique of indirect seeing and hearing, and then the internalization of the materials.
بخشی از اشیا هم که رعایت حق و حقوق و حد و حدود هر کسی هست رو از طریق دیدن و شنیدن رفتار اعضای خانواده یاد میگیریم.
Also, I learned a part of Asha, which is observing boundaries and the right of oneself and others by seeing and hearing the behavior of my family member.
حالا اینو خودت ترجمه بکن، توی نیسته. حالا با این همه مخالفت هایی که من چالش هایی که من تو خانواده ایجاد می کردم، ولی به خاطر درست دیدن و درست شنیدن در حال حاضر اشیای من مأموریت سنگینی رو بر روی دوشم گذاشت و اکنون در جایگاه موبدی پژوهشگر و نویسنده و همچنین مانترا درمانگر در خدمت همکیشانم.
Okay. This is not in the part that I translate before. She just added right now. So I just translate the things that I remember and in the way I can. So she said with all the challenges that she had all this time with the family and all of these kinds of things, right now, she choose this way and she choose this way and right now, okay, and this is the rest of the writing. Currently, my Asha has placed a heavy mission upon my shoulder, and now I am at the service of the fellow religionist in the position of a researcher mubed, an author, and also a mantra trappist.
خب الان این 3 تا جلد برای کودکان من نوشتم که تمامش دانسته های دینی و طب سنتی که همش از اوستا و گاتا گرفته شده، به اضافه این 1 جلد که درباره روش‌های تفاوت اوستاخوانی زرتشتیانی است که در ایران موندن و زرتشتیانی که از ایران مهاجرت کردند، از جمله پارسیان. و مطالب دیگه هم هست که هنوز تموم نشده و دارم می‌نویسم.
So far, I have written 3 volumes of Mazdi Yasna religion education book for children and their parents. In these, our religion's knowledge and Iranians' traditional medicines derived from the Avesta, which is essentially the correct method of parenting in the Mazda-Yasna religions are through in a very fluent and simple manner for children and parents. And another book about the difference in the method of Avesta recitation between Zoroastrians who migrate to India, means like Parsi ones, and those who remained in Iran. And a few other religion topics that are not finished yet.
در انتها صحبت‌های امروزم رو با پیامی از اشو زرتشت به پایان میرسونم. پروردگارا، ما را از بخشش رسایی و کمال مادی و معنوی و جاودانگی و نیکنامی امردار که از راه نیکاندیشی و پرهیزکاری و تسلط بر نفس یعنی وهومن و اشاق شسرا به دست میآید بهره‌مند ساز تا در پرتو این فروزگان به آرزوهای نیک خود برسیم. ایدون باد، ایدون ترج باد.
Now we want to finish the speech with a part of Ashu Zartush saying in the Gatha, Hot 34, verse 11. Ahura Mazda, grace us with the mercy of Khordad and Amordad, which comes from Vohuman, Asha, and Khashatra, so that we could achieve our good dreams by the light of those blesses. ایدون باد ایجون ترج باد.
Thank you very much, Mabadiyar Banu Anushe Bastani and your lovely daughter Dorsha for sharing all this information with us.
Thank you. It was an honor for us. Thank you so much.
It's very interesting that what some of the themes that Mabadiyar Anusher Bastani has referred to, including the health of the mind, body, and the soul, at least the mind and the body, can be achieved in the 17th Zoroastrian Games, being held from July the 1st to the 4th in UC Davis, California. And the registration opens has opened on the 22nd of February. And the early bird offer is only until the 7th of March. So this is probably something to run to if you can and implement all the good health tips that we just received from Mabadiyar Anushe Bastani. Thank you very much. Our next speaker today is Mabadiyar Mashad Khosraviani, representing Canada, Iran, and the United Kingdom. Mabadiyar Mashad was born and raised in Tehran, and she and her family migrated to Toronto in Canada in 2000. It was only then that she first realized the grave matter of her religion and culture, that she became an active member of both the Irani and Parsi communities in Toronto. Prior to her ordainment as a Mabadiyar in 2012, she had been teaching the Avesta classes, working with children preparing for the Navjot, writing articles for the Zoroastrian Society of Ontario and for the Huffington Post newsletter, and acting as guest speaker on Radio Asha. Mabadiyar Mashad is the first Zartushti lady Mabadiyar on the North American continent, who was officially ordained in the summer of 2012. She has been endowed with the honor of becoming the youngest female Zoroastrian Mabadiyar in Iran and the first in North America. The fruitful outcome, as she says, of her formidable venture. And she is the only ordained Mabadiyar in the Zoroastrian world recognized by both the North American Mabeds Council as well as the Iranian Mabed Council. Mabadiyar Mashad is currently the secretary, at that time she was the secretary for the World Zoroastrian Organization in Canada. Mabadiyar Mashad has secured a double major in international business law at the Schulich School of Business and Human Resource Management at York University, Toronto, Canada. In addition to her own academic work and her professional work, she has been requested to conduct numerous religious functions and communal events around the globe, including in Italy, United Kingdom, America, Canada, Iran, Australia, and Germany. She was also a featured speaker at the 2019 7th World Zoroastrian Youth Congress in Los Angeles in California, and was also showcased on episode 3 of the Zoroverse podcast titled Our Differences Make Us Glorious. Over to you, Mabadyar Mashad. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that kind introduction. And it's truly an honor to be on this seminar with you all. So today I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'll speak shortly within my 10-minute time frame, and it will be pretty much on my experience as a new mom with a focus on Yasna 44.7. So when I first, I guess, before becoming a mother, read this Hot Yasna 44.7, I thought of it as a beautiful piece of theology. But today, as I read it as a mother, in that verse from Garthas, Zarathustra asks, who places faith within the human heart? Who shaped devotion between parent and child? Who instilled duty in the son and love in the father? He turns to Ahura Mazda and recognizes something profound, that the bonds between us are not random, they are intentional, truthfully woven, rooted in Asha, in truth, in order, and in divine harmony. Those words feel different to me now, because as a mother to a 2-year-old boy, I think about creation in a completely new way. Parenting, to me, is creation in its most human, most vulnerable form, and it is truly an art built from the heart. Before I became a mother, I thought parenting was about knowledge, reading the right books, saying the right things, doing the right activities. But motherhood humbled me very quickly. When you're awake at 3 a.m. with a crying baby, when your toddler's on the floor in the middle of Costco in a full meltdown, when you're questioning whether you're patient enough, gentle enough, strong enough, you realize something deeply humbling, that parenting is not built from perfection. It is built from presence, from love that shows up again and again. And Zarathustra speaks of Asha, the order that sustains the universe, the rhyme that keeps the stars in their place, the unseen harmony holding creation together. And sometimes I look at my son and I wonder, how do I create that kind of order in his small world? Not control, not sternness, but safety, consistency, and truth, or Asha. Because Asha, to me as a mother, is no longer an abstract theology. It is the tone of my voice when I'm exhausted. It is the way I repair after I lose patience. It is choosing honesty over convenience. It is choosing gentleness when it would be so much easier to be shouting. Parenting is an art, and like all art, it is imperfect. There are days that I get it wrong, days that I react instead of responding, days that I feel overwhelmed, overstimulated, unsure. But there are sacred moments. When my son laughs freely, when he runs into my arms without hesitation, when he says a new word and looks at me with so much pride. And I realize I am shaping a soul, not controlling it, not owning it, but shaping the environment in which he is growing. And in Yasna 44.7, Zarathustra stands in awe of creation, of its intentional design. He recognizes that what is meaningful is never accidental. And that humbles me. Because parenting too cannot be accidental. Our words matter. Our actions matter. Our example matters. In Zoroastrianism, we are guided by Hommata, Huchta, Hovarashta, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. As a toddler mom, this teaching is no longer philosophical. Good thoughts is when he tests my patience. Good words is when I discipline him. And good deeds is when it's no one's watching, and how I conduct myself. Children do not become what we instruct, they become what we model. If I want him to grow into a man of courage, he must see courage in my husband and I. If I want him to live truthfully, he must feel truth in our home. And if I want him aligned with Asha, he must experience alignment in the way we live. And alignment does not mean perfection. It means authenticity, apologizing when I'm wrong. And I am wrong quite frequently, to be frank. I'm showing him that strength and softness can exist together, teaching him that mistakes are not failures. They are opportunities to grow. Parenting can feel heavy sometimes. There is noise in the world. There is uncertainty. There is fear, especially with everything that is going on at the moment in our homeland. And yet our traditions remind us that light is not fragile. For thousands of years, our faith has survived not through power, but through parents, through stories told at the dinner tables, through prayers whispered before sleep, through examples lived daily. The survival of our faith has always depended on parents. Not scholars, not institutions, but parents at home. And to be honest, that both terrifies and inspires me, because when I light a Devo in my home, when I whisper my Ashem Vahu when he watches, when I explain kindness in simple words, I am continuing something ancient. Creation did not end at the beginning of time. It continues in our homes. And parenting is part of that sacred continuation. Watching my son discover the world feels spiritual. The way he studies an ant as if it holds the secret of universe, when he points to the moon in an awe, the way he trusts so freely and completely, he reminds me that faith begins not in doctrine, but in experience. Perhaps my role is not simply to teach him about Ahura Mazda or good and bad, but to build a home so filled with truth, justice, patience, and compassion that he recognizes those qualities long before he can name them. Patience, justice, compassion, and truth. If Asha is the order that sustains the universe, then love must be the order that sustains a home. Parenting is not about control, and my 2-year-old has taught me that very well. It is about cultivation. We are not sculpting a marble, we are tending a garden, and gardens do not grow because we pull at them. They grow because we nurture them, water them, protect them, and simply trust the process. Some days I feel overwhelmed. Then I remember something deeply Zoroastrian. We are not asked to control the entire world. We are asked to improve it, one thought at a time, one word at a time, and one good deed at a time. And if I can create a home where truth is spoken gently, where kindness is consistent, and mistakes are met with growth instead of shame, then I'm participating in the victory of light. Parenting is sacred work. It is invisible, uncelebrated, exhausting, but it is transformative and it is rewarding. My son has made me more patient than I knew I could be, more reflective and more aware of my ego. In shaping him, he is shaping me. And perhaps that is the deepest art of parenting. It refines that parent as much as it forms the child. Zarathustra looked at creation with awe, and as a mother, I feel that awe every day. A tiny hand in mine, trust in his eyes, a future unfolding. Parenting is not a science. It is not a checklist. It is an art built from the heart, guided by Asha, strengthened by love, and refined through humility. And when we raise children anchored in truth, courageous in spirit, and compassionate in action, we are doing more than raising individuals. We are shaping the future of our faith, the future of our community, and the future of the world. And so with that, may we parent with intention, may we lead with example, may our homes reflect the light we wish to see in the world. And may our children grow not only in knowledge, but in wisdom, in courage, and in unwavering alignment with Asha. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mobadir Banu Mashad Khosraviani. Beautiful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me.
It is no surprise that our next speaker is looked up to by both the youth and the seniors, Laila Mobidji, who contributes for many months towards the 13th World Zoroastrian Congress, which is being held in 2026 in Singapore this December. It's not just about reach out, aspire, and rise. Their focus, the whole team has been working for years now, with one of their themes being rejuvenate the Zoroastrian identity. And weaving into this tapestry is many, many people's hard work and good thoughts, for which we thank them. And Laila Mobidji is one of the people contributing very actively to the youth line. Laila holds an undergraduate degree in film and media and a master's in business management from the University of British Columbia. With a lifelong love for reading and travel, she has always been deeply curious about the world and the stories that shape it. Laila holds a Zartushti heritage very close to her heart and is currently one of the youth members of the Programming Committee for the World Zoroastrian Congress, taking place in Singapore. Having grown up in Singapore, she is especially excited to welcome and share the vibrancy of the city and its close-knit Zoroastrian community with the global community. Over to you, Laila, and thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for having me. It is so lovely to be here with everyone virtually today. To give you a little bit of context about me, I work as a branded content producer in Singapore, but my life has taken me all over the world. In Mumbai, sorry. I grew up for several years in Singapore. I completed my higher education in Canada and have lived both deeply within the heart of a thriving Zoroastrian community and thousands of miles away from one. And yet, no matter where I was in the world, my identity as a Zoroastrian and the value system ingrained in me have never felt distant. It was always right there for me to tap into, for me to lean on, to let guide me. And it was led at every one of those stages by Humata Hukta Huvrashta, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. We've all heard those words often enough, but I'm almost certain that each and every one of us here have a profoundly different understanding of those words and what they mean to us. And I started to think about why this was. How do values become so deeply rooted in someone as a young child that you carry them forward with you regardless of space, time, location, circumstance? Psychology offers an interesting answer, actually. The work of Albert Bandura on observational learning has proven that children do not primarily learn through instruction. They learn by watching, by absorbing the behaviors and patterns modeled around them. We don't become what we are told repeatedly. We become what we see lived consistently. which is why when I reflect on the theme of parenting as an art that is built from the heart, sorry, excuse me, I've realized that parenting is one of the most powerful ways we have to leave a legacy. Because it is through parenting, really, that your values outlive you. They move forward into the next generation. They shape choices you may never witness, and they influence lives you may never meet. But to do this, they cannot simply be taught. They can't be enforced through rules. They have to be absorbed. And they are absorbed by your children, by the children around you, very quietly. They are absorbed in the way children see you speak to one another, in the way they see disagreements handled in the family, in the way they see resilience and perseverance play out. When you grow up surrounded by people who are guided by lived principles, those principles don't feel like lessons. They become part of the atmosphere. They embed themselves into who you are. And I think that is where parenting becomes an art. And for me, that art was rooted in the practice of Mutta Hukta Huvrashta, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, not as abstract ideals, but as daily choices. And I had the immense privilege of seeing those choices play out by more than two people. I grew up in a Parsi colony and was surrounded by families who shared not just religion, but a rhythm of life. We're often seen as a minority community around the world. I've heard that word thrown around quite often. But growing up, it never felt like one because even though it was small, this small world around me felt complete. And that context shaped how I understand parenting. For me, parenting was never something that was done by just two people. It was lived collectively. I was guided by my parents, encouraged by my aunts and uncles, watched over by neighbors. It was a warm embrace, but it was not an overwhelming presence. Recently, in a message about this session, Meher uncle wrote something that really stayed with me, and I discussed this with him actually. He said, "How do we learn to walk with children instead of walking for them?" I realize now that leading by example and trusting them to make their own choices is how you empower them. And so much of who I am today, self assured, able to trust in my own instincts and my own moral compass, comes from being raised in that ecosystem of example. Allow me to tell you about a seemingly insignificant but profoundly visceral memory I have from the age of 10 years old. I was in the fourth grade at the JV Pettit High School for Girls in Mumbai. Could not have been more than 3.5 feet tall, and that's being generous. I was a scrawny little kid. I kept hearing, "You need to eat more, you need to eat more." And this one day, a small group of my friends, and we're about 6 of us, we're still friends to this very day, got into a fight. I can't for the life of me tell you what this fight was about, just that I was just shy of maybe 10 years old and it felt monumental. I was filled by what I can only describe as righteous rage. That evening, one of the mothers called another friend's mom up to intervene and sort it out for the kids. So I too wanted some parental representation in this conflict. I marched up to my mom. I ranted about this incredibly unjust thing that had happened to me and demanded that she call Anushka's mom up and tell her about my points A, B, and C. I can still see exactly where she was sitting on the couch when we had this conversation. She flat out refused to make the phone call and instead suggested that I was welcome to pick up the phone. At that point in time, I couldn't understand why she wouldn't just defend me and was making me do what I perceived to be her job. Regardless of my protest at the time, mom and dad sat me down and made me talk through what I was feeling. They didn't trivialize the conversation, though I'm sure they had a laugh about it later. They respected the maybe silly, but definitely fraught emotions of a 10-year-old. Dad listened, mom asked questions. Together, they gently nudged me toward an understanding of what I was feeling and what my responsibility in it was. And then they sat next to me munching on their salad dinner while I picked up the phone and I made the phone call. Looking back and recognizing that this memory has stayed with me for so many years, I realized that they were guiding me through something far deeper than a playground disagreement. First, they helped me discipline my mind to move from reactive anger to clearer thinking, Humata. Then they encouraged me to articulate myself with honesty and composure, ukta. And finally, they empowered me to act, to take the responsibility myself of solving the conflict. Huvrashta. It was then that I started to realize that these principles are not isolated virtues. They are a progression of consciousness. It takes internal fortitude to think good thoughts when you believe you are wronged. It takes vulnerability to translate those good thoughts into good words. And it takes strength to follow through with good deeds. My parents could have solved that problem in 5 minutes, but instead they strengthened something inside me that has lasted decades, the ability to regulate emotion, to resolve conflict, to trust myself. I think that is what the art of parenting is about. We don't just hear values, we witness them, we experience them. And when children are trusted to act, supported but not overbidden, they develop something far more important than obedience. They develop judgment, they develop resilience, they develop a conscience. So the best thing that you can give a child is not protection from difficulty, it's preparation for it. And when you raise your children with these principles of humakta, hukta, huvrashta, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, lived consistently in front of them, you're not just raising individuals, you're shaping the moral fabric of the future. So thank you so much for giving me your time today. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you, Laila. I love the example you shared. Splendid. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Laila Mobidji. Our next speaker today, and our final speaker, is my mum, Jaru Pantiki Ram Mohan. Now, Jaru is an alternative medical practitioner, educator, and entrepreneur, life coach, has been a beauty therapist, athlete at the national level in India, and is a constant researcher. As a graduate in nursing, she served the poorest of the poor to the richest honorarily for the good of health and holistic development. As learning and development mentor and co-founder of Ultimate Achievements Academy, Jaru catalyzes the growth and learning of individuals, different ages, different backgrounds. Each one gets something special. Jaru taught the Duke of Edinburgh Award classes and high school and has been a life and general insurance agent and inspector, and also enjoys art, music, and nature painting, in addition to running a newspaper and starting a new newspaper in her mid-30s. Mum has designed and built her own house with her own and her husband's savings, hers and dad's, striving to make the impossible possible, though it took 7 long years to complete, and believes very strongly in opportunity and education for all, and in some way catalyzing people's vision coming true. Over to you, Ma'am.
I'm very happy to be here today to describe my own experiences. And I've heard all the other speakers who have spoken most of what I would like to speak as well. So I will not touch those points, but I'll tell you only what I feel as a mother. Not just a mother to my child, but a mother to the whole world, to all the environment, to all the creatures, to all the plants, to all the human beings, without any distinction. One becomes a mother right from the childhood. One understands the value of love, the value of nurturing, and the value of understanding each one's wants and each one's beliefs. It's not just human beings. You can be a parent to a dog, a cat. You can be a parent to a plant. You can be a parent to anything and everything. But the child, when it is born, it teaches you how to be a better parent. It teaches you a lot more than what you have ever learned. A child is the mother or father of man. It's truly said. Because without having a child and without nurturing nature, you cannot understand human values. You cannot understand the esoteric meaning of nurturing, as Zarathustra said. Vastarim. Vastarim is a protector, a carer, a nurturer, and somebody who has complete knowledge of raising somebody, whether it's an animal or a plant or a child. I believe that a child, when it is born, there is a total attachment to the mother, not as much to a father, till the child starts understanding the value of the father. When the mother breastfeeds a child, there is a greater attachment. And when a mother personally looks after the child, the attachment grows. Instead of asking a nanny to look after a child or a grandparent to look after the child, the mother is the most important entity in a child's life. And the greater the attachment, the greater the affection, devotion of the mother, the child grows up happily in a beautiful environment. The father is naturally a nurturer who provides everything that is needed in the home. And so does a mother who's working also does that role, plays that role. In many a case, there is a single mother or a single father. They take over the parenting of both. When the child starts understanding, the child reveres the parent. The child is devoted to the parent and grows up loving everybody because that love is inculcated in that child. That love is injected into the child with the mother's action, the father's actions, their behavior towards one another. When a child is growing up, the parents never argue in front of the child. They never have different opinions in front of the child. Otherwise, the child becomes cheeky, goes from one parent to the other, and asks for things, behaves in a very rude manner, sometimes even becomes wild, and wants to have something means the child must have something. And that sort of behavior is an unwarranted thing in a child. Therefore, the parents should always be loving and united, in front of the child at least. Whatever they do behind the doors is their business. But in front of the child, the parents must be devoted, loving, and united in their opinions. No matter what religion they are, or what caste they are, or what families they are from, they should put it all aside. Their age difference, their religion difference, whatever it may be, their beliefs. Everything should be put aside in front of the child. They should only speak good words, show them good deeds, and loving atmosphere for the child to grow up in. When the child goes to school, I'll give you the example of my child. She would come to me and ask me questions. And I would say, go and find out for yourself. She'll go through her little books. She'll go and ask other people, whoever was there. But if she didn't get an answer, she'd come back to me. Then I would give her my thesaurus and say, now look into that thesaurus. I mean, that is a child who's in the 3rd or 4th standard. And I'll say, now look into that and try and find out what you want. Same with maths. My husband would take over and he would start teaching her mathematics. I would take over science and things like that. But in every subject, we were united. We never argued in front of her. We never taught her how to fight, not even for her rights. We'd say, let go. Now, come on. Think of something else. She would never come complaining to against anybody to us, even when she went to school. Because we would not listen to the complaints. We would just say, now forget it. It's past is past. Let it go. Whatever happens, fight it off or argue it off or try to understand the other person. And she would do that. In every way, the child must be respected. Right from the birth, the child should be honored. The wants must be fulfilled. Needs must be fulfilled. Even before the child asks for a thing, it should be presented to the child, so that the child would never lack anything. Don't give fancy things. Don't give luxuries. Give what is necessary. And the child will learn to live within the necessities, within the margin of one's parents' ability to give. She would understand, or he would understand, and not make demands. As the child grows up, the child starts parenting a parent, because the child develops far more intelligence than the parent, in most cases. Even if a child is backward, a parent must respect that child, honor that child, see that the child doesn't lack anything, see that the child is safe from all harm. In every way, the parent must be a vastarim, a protector, a provider, a nurturer, a love giver, a devotional parent, with lots of love for the child, but never, never spoil a child with luxuries, with unnecessary demands that are fulfilled. No, don't do that. Give the child whatever you think is the best for the child, which will protect the child in every way, will bring up the child to ask only for what is needed, to understand the needs of the parents as well, and to understand how much the parent can afford to give. The parent-child bond, without any outer influence, is the most important one. The child should respect the parents, and through the parents, respect all the elder people, all those who are even 1 year or 2 years older than that child. They must respect. They must respect even their equals. And they must respect even the people who are younger than them. So respect is inculcated in a child by the parent's own example. The parent has to be a role model to the child, because the child is teaching the parent to become one. This is what I have to impress on people, that a bond is never made without devotion, an unconditional devotion. Not that the child will look after me after I become old, not because I want anything from the child. I want the child's money when the child starts growing up and earning. All these thoughts must never, ever creep into a parent's mind. A parent must unconditionally give all the love, all the care, all the devotion to the child. Also, when the child is very young, the parent must not say, don't talk to so-and-so, don't go into so-and-so's arms, don't do this, don't do that. No, on the contrary. A child is brought up by a whole city. A child is brought up by the entire environment it is in. Let the child know what friendship is, what love is, what devotion is, how to care for other people, how to share the toys with other children, how to give rather than take. There are people who only take, and take. They never think of giving. But when you give, you get. That is the principle on which you should teach the child to share everything, to be kind to everybody, not just share the toys, but to share the love, devotion, understanding, respect. All these things should be inculcated in a child from a very young age. This is what Bastarem should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mummy. I suppose you would like your slide to be shared, which I will do now. I found that very interesting to listen to, because the balance between what you were talking about, nurturing, is Armaiti, and the discipline and respect comes under Kshatra. And that's exactly what the third line of Yasna 44, verse 7, which is our reference today, which says, who fashioned Armaiti along with Kshatra? So that balance comes out in parenting. We will now open the floor, not just for questions, but for each one of you present to share your understanding or message on the theme of parenting. But first, if you've got a question for the speakers, this is your chance to ask a specific question. Just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, in that case, we'll move on to your sharing your thoughts, experiences, and takeaways. We've got Professor Farooq Mistry. Yes, Farooq.
I was intrigued by, I was intrigued by what everybody said. What I found when you related your personal experiences, and what I'm interested in is learning about the difference between parenting, which is your personal experience, and Zoroastrian parenting. What makes Zoroastrian parenting different from parenting about loving everybody, doing everything, stuff like that? And if you could tie the notion of Zoroastrian parenting to doctrine or values in Zoroastrianism. I'd really appreciate it. And this question is for all the speakers.
Laila, would you like to? Thank you, Farooq. Laila, would you like to go first?
I think it's a very interesting question, and I don't think I'm qualified to speak on the doctrine. But I can tell you from my personal experience what I see to be the difference between Zoroastrian parenting and parenting that I'm seeing in other forms is that one of the primary facets that I've noticed in other friends of mine as well is that we really look to empower the children around us. We're not looking to teach. Obedience is not one of the highest goals of parenting, at least in my experience. I've seen in a lot of other families, you do what is asked of you when it is asked of you, and you don't question that. In my house, if there was something that came down from my parents that my younger sister or I didn't agree with, we would ask about it. We would put our case forward and put our perspective forward. And we did that guided by the principles of good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It's just that my ideal of good thoughts might be different from yours, and I have the luxury of being able to put that forward.
Thank you, Laila. Do you want to add anything to what you said, Mama? Okay. In that case, Mobedyar Anushe Bastani, now that you're online, please.
برای فرقی که یعنی به تجربه دیدم بین ما زرتشتیان و خانواده های دیگه از هر دینی، ما همیشه پیروی از راستی میکنیم و عشر، و اینو من تو هیچ دین دیگه ای ندیدم که تاکید بکنن روش.
Okay, she said based on her experience, the difference between the Zoroastrian and other religions is we only teach our children and our kids the truth and Asha. And she never saw this in on other religions, if you pay attention or search for that. So the biggest difference is only we said there is only one way in the world, and it's the truth and Asha.
البته دینه که تو ایران وجود داره.
Actually, we're saying it regarding to the religions that we have in Iran.
چون دین زیاده.
Thank you.
Right. In which case, can I suggest something? I've heard what you said about Asha and truth. This is very interesting because truth can be viewed differently. Supposing two people view truth differently, and then we think in terms of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. It is entirely possible that if one person followed the truth and the other person followed the truth as he or she sees it, then there's disharmony. And if I thought in terms of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, and I'm told that I have to do hamazuri, in other words, my actions have to result in harmony, not disharmony. That, I think, is a distinction between Zoroastrian parenting and normal parenting. That's one of them. The second is Yasna 30.2. The idea of getting a child to observe, to reflect, and to act with a good mind to facilitate harmony. That is what we are told in Zoroastrianism. We are told to use Yasna 30.2 to move the world towards prosperity. So shouldn't we be thinking in terms of two things? One, this notion of hamazuri, and the second is the notion of doing things in terms of observing, reflecting, and articulating to bring about that hamazuri. And the question to the parents, the young parents in particular, is how do you go about doing that?
Can I guide you? Thank you. Uh, excuse me, I say Farsi, my daughter
I'm
translates.
trying my best. Yeah.
ما به بچه هامون به نسل جدید میگیم هر جایی که میرید و در هر شرایطی که قرار میگیرید دروغ نگین چون به خودمون برمیگرده و از هستی به ما برمیگرده به شیوه های مختلف اگر نمیتونی راست بگی نگو مکان رو ترک بکن و یا حرف رو عوض بکن موضوع صحبت رو عوض بکن به خصوص تو شرایط سختی که در ایران زندگی میکنن بچه ها
The way that we teach the new generation is in anywhere, any place, any situation, never lie. Because if you lie in the future, we believe in Asha, we know any actions coming back. We see the result, good or bad. So try your best. We always have to be in the right way and never lie. This is the most important things that we always say. Never lie. Even if we can't say the right things, we can leave that place or we can like change the conversation, change the subject on the conversation, especially in this situation of Iran, because sometimes you can avoid of so many things, and also like we don't want to be on that conversation. We don't want to say anything or we don't want to answer. So most of the times we are just silent. We don't answer, but we never lied. We never say something that is against like good thought, good words, good deeds. And this is like in our dini classes, this is what we learn every year. And also before that, before we go to school, this is what we learn since we are a little baby. Never lie.
تو رفتار والدینشون هم میبینن
And also they can see these things in the parenting. They can see how parents, how they talk with others, how they avoid lying, how they avoid like bad things, bad words, bad thought, bad deeds, and this kinds of things. So they learn it in the life.
اما با آدم که هستیم همه جور اتفاق میکنه
So, but in the situation when you're with others, anything can happen. So
we try that
yeah, we try our best.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd probably like to read out what Delna has said. Delna, would you like to read out what you've written yourself?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
So I agreed with the other couple of people. And what if one parent has different beliefs and parenting styles and they believe they are right and alienates the child from the other parent, making the other parent a villain in the eyes of a minor child?
This comes back to what you were saying. So Delna's question is, what if one parent has a different belief and parenting style and alienates the child from the other parent, making the other parent a villain in the eyes of a minor, innocent child?
No, that should never be. They should be united. As I said earlier, parents should show a united front to the child and never alienate one against the other.
But
You must
what if that
always show
happens?
love for the other parent so that the child starts loving. Now, for instance, when my daughter was born, my husband wanted a son. He didn't want a daughter. But I kept putting my daughter in his arms and started telling the child how lovely the father was. See, dada, dada, nice, nice, good dada, speak to dada, kiss dada, things like that, you know. And the child became so loving to the parent, to my husband, that my husband got extremely attached to her.
Delna's question is a very valid one, and I think it's very important in today's world if we can answer it. I don't think there's any easy answer, Delna. So I think we'll go around the room and see what different people have to say about this. So
Thank
Delna's
you.
question is and it is an experience that younger parents today experience more than in the past, possibly? But I have seen it happen in other houses, even as I was growing up. So let's go around the room. If you could just unmute yourself. What does one do if one parent, through willfully or by chance of accident or by oversight, starts to alienate the other parent in the eyes of a minor, innocent child due to different beliefs and different parenting styles? Does anybody want to hazard an
Yes,
opinion?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
let
have?
me
Okay.
Yeah.
let me jump into this. It is not only between parents, it's also between generations. The way in
Yeah.
which we were brought up is totally different to the way in which our children and our grandchildren will be bringing them up. So I think the role of parenting is to transmit values, And in our case, when we look at Zoroastrian parenting, the idea is to transfer Zoroastrian values to the children. These values are different to the values from Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, etc. And so once we are able to translate those values, the next step is to say, how do you think about continuing to live with these values and decide how to bring up your own children? For example, I'm married to a non-Zoroastrian. Okay? We come from totally different backgrounds. She was brought up in the United States. I was brought up in India. And my mother, who spent 20 years with us, told both of us, guess what? You have to bring up the children as you see fit. I am there to support the way in which you do it. Too often, grandparents come along and say, hey, guess what? You have to do what we did. In the same way, the young parents like Lila and others need to think in terms of how they can empower their children to bring up their children in a way that's different, but the values remain the same. That's the key question. What are the Zoroastrian values we want to pass on to the children? And the way of thinking so that they're able to come up with their own way in which they can bring up their children.
Thank you, Farooq. I think Delna's question may have something to do with something she's experiencing. So I'm going to repeat the question and see if anybody has anything to help her. So Delna's question is, if one parent is somehow achieving the alienation of the other parent from a minor child, is there something that one can do?
Even if both the parents don't agree with each other, they should do it behind the doors,
That's still
not
not
in
the
front of
answer.
the child.
That's still not the answer to Delna's question. Okay, I'm only a child here. I can see Arvad Firdosh Dhabar nodding his head, and as he is a Mabid, and a Mabid's role is to support a difficult situation in the community, I'd like to ask him if he has something to add. Otherwise, I will, from my limited experience, hazard an answer. Arvad Firdosh, over to you.
You're a very wise child, Karishma, so I'm sure you have whatever you have to say is going to be helpful. Delna, I don't know whether it's a thing you're experiencing or someone you know is experiencing. I don't know if I have an answer, but it's very, very tough. These are kind of one of the things I work on is stress, and these are amongst the most significant stressors, situations like you described. So, just off the top of my head, I didn't expect to be put on the spot, but I was thinking about your question. Um, I think one thing that might be helpful, although not easy to do, is to see if you can find support from people who truly care about you in a situation like this, and support not only to guide, because one would need to know more specifics, to guide somebody in a situation like that. So support that they know you well enough, you trust them, they care for you, so that they can, guide you and really help, and if possible, even help, through other means, meaning getting additional, support and guidance for you. But what you've described for anybody experiencing it, fortunately, I haven't experienced this kind of thing. and I'm grateful for that. But for anybody experiencing these kinds of things, a question like this immediately should make the rest of us who are lucky enough never to have experienced this, a question like this should immediately make us think deeper than just giving whatever first answer that comes to mind, or saying whatever the normal things are. So I hope whoever is experiencing this kind of challenge, overcomes it and comes out better off at the other end. If I think of anything else, Karishma, I'll let you know. But this one bothered me and too many people have to deal with things like this. And these are, when we classify stressors, there are things that you kind of shouldn't be, you can easily not be stressed about if you train yourself. There are things that are challenging, that are, worth grappling with, understandably. And then there are things, stressors, that are very, very tough. This goes into that category, at least according to me. And it's tough. So I'm sorry I don't have an easy answer.
Delna has asked a question that we are now taking the responsibility of finding a couple of different answers for. So we have Roshan Ravetna, who has left herself unmuted and who was nodding. So Auntie Roshan has a wealth of community experience. So if you'd like to add something, this is a very good time to offer what. Yes, Mabidyar Banu, Anusha will come to you in a moment.
Karishma,
Auntie Roshan?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, you are an excellent example of what your mom has done in parenting. Anyway, the question several people have asked is, what is the difference between Zoroastrian parenting and non-Zoroastrian parenting?
Roshan Auntie, may I come back to you then? Because at this point, Delna is seeking community support and advice. So I'll just come back to Delna's question. Maybe Mobidyar Anusha has a specific answer for her. And then I'll
Yes.
come back to you because you're addressing Farooq Mystery's question.
Yes.
So, yes. Darsha, could you please read out the question to the mum so she has a
Yeah, I
specific
explain it.
question?
Okay.
Thank you.
ما آدما با خودمونم چالش داریم. اینو بگو.
She said, first, before everything, even we have challenge with ourselves too.
پس هیچ ازدواجی، هیچ دو نفری هم رأی نیستن، هم نظر نیستن.
So no married, no two people in the world you can't find that they be agreeing everything 100% with each other.
اوکی. ما فقط یک چیز رو به عنوان انسان میتونیم به بچه هامون البته همه درست گفتم، ولی فقط یک چیز رو میتونیم بگیم. هر چیزی که در دین ما اومده، هر چیزی که به خودت و دیگران آسیب بزنه گناهه.
So she said, as a parent, she agreed with the things that everyone said, and she just want to add a little point. As a parent, we have to teach our kids that in our religion, we know whatever hurt yourself, it's not good. I don't know how to say it, but we know that. In our religion, we said whatever is harmful for you, just to you and the others, it's not good.
پس هر نظری که فکر میکنی برای رشد تو و آرامش تو و سلامتی تو مفیده، بدون آسیب زدن به خودت یا دیگران انتخاب کن.
So any opinion, any lesson that you think it's good for your growth, for your healthy, for your future, without harm anyone else, choose that one. Because in our life, there's so many options. So see what is in the Asha's way, and it's not going to hurt yourself and other people. That's the right one. Choose that one.
ولی باید پیشرفت کنی.
But you always have to remember this one, that you have to grow up and you have to go forward. You don't have to stay in your spot and just say, I won't do anything, so it's not going to be hurtful for me or others. You just have to, every second in your life, you have to grow.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to read out a verse from the Gathas, the last line only, which I think applies to what you've asked, Delna, in my limited knowledge, and then I'll hand over to Mobit Firdosh Dabar and then to Auntie Roshan. So your question is, in this context, a mother who has lost her children due to alienation by the other parent. While it's not for a mother that Zarathustra Sahib has said this, he has said this for Mother Earth. Why did you create me? Yasna 29 verse 1. And when upon me comes plunder and violence and outrage and oppression, there is no protector other than you. Then comes the answer. Teach me Vahu Vastraya. So this challenge, Delna, is an opportunity that Zarathustra Sahib's message tells me that when there is oppression to a mother, be it Mother Earth or a mother herself, teach me how to be a Vastarim. So the word Vastarim that Mummy was referring to in her talk today was from the Yatahu Vairyo. The one who gives to those in need is a Vastarim. A Drigobyu Dadat Vastarim. But the same concept is coming in a response to oppression, outrage, and plundering of the heart of a mother. In this case, Mother Earth, but it applies to a mother who has lost her children. Teach me to still learn to grow, be industrious, and to give love. Why do I mention this, Delna, very briefly? Because there will come a time where the children will look for their mother. And at that time, the mother needs to be strong, supportive, and still full of love for the Aura Mazda within herself and love for the children, and in some form, I suppose, a gratitude to the same father through whom she has obtained those children. And when the child sees in that mother some respect for the form of creation, Aura Mazda in action, and still there's no hatred, there's no regret, there's still the concept of being Bahu Vastraya. The respect that that child will have for the mother or the alienated parent, the love, the devotion can only be thought of. That would be my answer to you, however difficult. Over to Mobit Firdosh Dabar and then Auntie Roshan.
Thanks, Karishma. You said that beautifully, and actually much more beautifully than what I was going to say, and that is the idea that often, unfortunately, though not always, but often, very often, time heals. Time changes things, and exactly like Karishma explained, it is likely that as the kids grow up, they will have a better understanding, and so everything that you can do, if one can do it. If one can't, it's fine. But everything that one can do to set the stage right and not lose one's own identity, humanity, principles while dealing with a very unfair and challenging situation, everything that you can do to prepare the soil well for yourself and for the future, re-engagement with your children, the better it might be. And Karishma said it beautifully. There will be a time very often where people come back and they will remember, hey, wait a minute, now I understand. I'm old enough to understand what you went through. And, we missed those times together, but now let's make the most of what we have. So I hope that that's the kind of, outcome one sees. Thanks, Karishma.
Thank you, Mobit Sahib Firdosh Dabar. Auntie Roshan, we'll end with a final word from you, as our senior community member.
Well, I've been listening to all the beautiful advice that you've given, all of you, all the speakers. One thing that bothers me is that it's the difference in the generations, and where we grew up. Parenting is so different. It's not just different between Zoroastrians and non-Zoroastrians, but more different between which generation of Zoroastrians you're talking about and which country you grew up in. And it was so beautiful where I grew up in India. in my generation, I hardly knew anybody that had a divorce. Divorce wasn't done at all in those days. And now in this country, in America, I see so many people having divorces. So, and, parents, as soon as the child is 18 years old, she leaves the house and goes away, can't live with the parents. And as soon as the parents are older and they are left in homes, so it's a different world altogether and a different generation. So I just wish that we could bring back some of the values that we had when we grew up.
Thank you, Auntie. So Auntie has a long-standing research and experience in bringing future parents together, because Auntie Roshan Ravetna introduces people to people who fit well together from her experience. And I feel that is an extremely needed and highly respected community service, because sometimes we can't see what we need, and a more experienced person can see where we may fit. And I find that fitting together like a jigsaw puzzle through the eyes of a wise senior extremely valuable. So thank you, Auntie Roshan. With that, if anybody else has anything to say, this is the time to say it, and then we'll ask Mobadyar Anushe for a closing prayer. Does anyone have anything to say? Final thoughts? No? Okay. Mobadyar Banu Anushe, please give us a prayer to close our session. Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay. Shnaut Rahurai Mazda. Hashem bo vaishtamasti, ushta asti, ushta ahmai, yat hashoy vaishta Hashem. Yatahu vairyu atarato, shasho chitacho, vankeosh dasdomananko. Shout nanam ankeosh mazdoich, shatrem chahurayo, imdirigu dadat vostarem. Hashem bo vaishtamasti, ushta asti, ushta ahmoi yadashoy vaishta Hashem. Aidumbat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delna, I'm putting my number into the chat. If you need it, you will have it. And I think somebody else has also asked you to connect with them, and I'm grateful to, it was Professor Farooq Mistry. So please, in case you ever want to be a speaker on Bahumata, you will be able to have the opportunity to address your children wherever they are. If anybody else would like to be a speaker, then you have my number in the chat. Please connect with us. We're now stopping the recording, but you can stay on for community building if you would still like to. Thank you all, and gratitude to all those who are listening to the recording.